You're winning. You're winning. You're winning. Well, hello, and how are you doing this evening? Welcome to another episode of Epic Understanding. I am your host, Coach Love, and as promised, I have a good one for you today. I'm here with an amazing man. Let me just pop this up here for you, okay? Tyrone Corbett, look at here. He is a Grammy Award winner. He has a Billboard #1 hit. He's a videographer, a songwriter, a producer. He's worked with top names: Will Downing, Lalah, Hathaway, Gerald, Albright. I mean, does it get any more delicious than that? Yes, it does. Let me tell you. His next release is with someone from American Idol. He is at the top of his game. He's currently working with musicians from all over the world, including people from The Voice. We can just say, wow, his days are fun. As a matter of fact, when he was telling me about his day today, I was just simply delighted to sit at his feet. All of that goodness, all of those accomplishments. But you guys know what I want to know? I want to know about the man behind all of those accolades. So without further ado, let us give a warm welcome to Tyrone. Hey, Tyrone, how are you?
Hey, Erica, how are you? Good to see you.
Wonderful to see you. You know, I tried to get him to sing to me.
The voice is not cooperating today. That's for sure. It's been a long day.
That is good. But you know what? You make music on a regular basis. If you don't mind, tell us about the project that you are currently working on.
Well, there are two that, are massively important to me. The first song that's out now. It's called The Bell Tolls for You. And it's been described as the new social justice and voting rights anthem. And those aren't my words, but how the song has been taken by many who've heard it. So it's something I'm extremely proud of. I wrote it with a couple of writers that I've been working with for many years, Clarence Penn and Joseph Gaida. And, so it's been wonderful just to sit back and get the project out and have it so well received. I mean, that's really been incredible. So, and my next release is on American Idol finalist Michael Lynch.
Okay. That is beautiful. I want to go back to the Bell Tolls for You. That's Shakespearean,
Yes.
isn't it?
Well, it's interesting. One thing I'll share about the song is that most people think it was written as a result of the George Floyd circumstance, which was still or is still so horrific. But it was actually written in 2018 as I was talking to my buddy Clarence, and I told him I wanted to write a song that had more teeth, something that I could, really grip to dealing with, whether it was the economic situation, the polarization of politics, the marginalization of people of color and other poor people. So that birthed The Bell Tolls for You.
Oh, I see. And I need to correct myself because For Whom the Bell Tolls was actually published by Hemingway. I said
That is correct.
Yeah, I said Shakespeare. So you wrote it at a completely different time than people are receiving it in.
That's correct. Yeah, and for me, again, it was something that I wanted to sink my teeth into. Little did I know that it would be so profound going forward a few years. So it was something that really has been monumental. And sadly, as people of color continue to lose their lives, it's something that still remains and likely in an unfortunate way will remain, relevant.
Mm, mm. You know what? My greatest, well, one of my greatest hopes is that it doesn't remain relevant in that way. That we
Yeah,
can that
I
we can
can
all
appreciate
begin,
that as well.
yes, that we can all begin to truly find the value in one another.
Yeah, but what also I may point out about the song, which is even a more a positive spin, if you will, is the fact that for us dealing with voting rights and the bell tolls for you is about standing up and being accounted for. So that's something else that's really relevant. And in the video, if you've seen it, at the end of the video, it shows John Lewis as the final capture, and it says, vote.
Mm, mm. If you have the right to vote, you should be voting.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I hear so many people, Erica, saying that they don't feel their votes matter,
Mhm.
and we're fighting an uphill battle, obviously. But each and every vote matters, and when they try not to allow them to matter, it's upon us to stand up and make sure we're counted.
Mm, mm. I will say this, as an American, it is your duty and your right
And your
and
responsibility.
well, yeah, your honor and your responsibility to vote. You should be educated and you should vote. For sure. I want to say hi to our chat out there. We have Global FM. Um, they watch all the time. Clarence Penn is new. I think he must have came here just for you.
Oh,
And
he's one of my co-writers. Great,
oh,
incredible drummer,
I
by the way.
see. I see. Okay. I'm glad that he came here to support you. I love some new support. And then he's out there as a Gooseman, but he's better known as Ing. He came just to say hello and give you some support. I'm curious about this project that you worked on, The Bell Tolls for You, and now it's been taken in a new light. Tell me this. Have you had another project that um, worked out in that particular way where you meant the song in one way, and then once the audience got a hold of it, they said, "Ooh, ooh, no, this is mine," and then they took it out on a new way.
No, it's never happened before, and I'm very
Oh,
grateful that it's been so well received. And I've received messages from all over the world and from all nationalities of support for it. It's really resonating in a beautiful way.
well, I am surprised when you said no. I said, "Wow," because I would think, I would think that when you take a song and the audience gets a hold of it, they just take it and make it their own.
Yeah, yeah. And that's one thing that's great about lyrics and storytelling. As a songwriter, one of the things I enjoy best is sometimes you're writing a very direct message, and then other times you want to write a message where people can interpret and lean into it themselves. I think it's almost best when they can lean into it. What's really great about The Bell Tolls for You is the fact that although the messaging is very direct, there are some gems in it that people are still taking away some other messages other than what I initiated, but they're all positive and moving in that same direction.
Okay, so that is excellent. That is excellent. You happen to be good friends with a gentleman named Will Downing.
Oh, yeah, that's one of my buddies.
Well, I am a fan of your buddies. I must say, the brother can blow.
Oh, that brother can sing. And, I met Will when we were in college at Virginia Union University in Richmond, my hometown, by the way. And I met Will there, and Will departed kind of quickly because he really wanted to pursue his career in music. And so I followed a few years later behind him and relocated from Virginia to New Jersey so I could be close to New York.
Oh, okay, okay. So is Will kind of like a big brother to you?
Um, Yeah, in many ways, yes. I mean, he's had such an incredible career that I've been able to watch him do some impressive things and try to model some of those things. I've had the great fortune of writing with him, uh, providing vocals on his records, engineering with him, touring with him. So, it's been really an incredible journey.
Wow. Okay. I have to say so. And I'm going to fangirl out just a little bit.
All right, you're entitled.
Thank you. Thank you. Just because it leads me to a point to where I believe it's a part of what's important to me. Right now, I have a campaign and it's called um, the Global Positive Masculinity Campaign.
Mm,
I know your friend, Will, went through some challenging times in his health.
mm.
Okay. I am curious about how you came alongside of him, brother to brother, during that time.
Wow. Well, it's a story that's been out there, and Will got sick when we were on the road, and he started to go a little downhill, and to his just worth, he fought out an entire tour being ill, and made it through the entire tour, and so. I think the part that was difficult for all of us is we kind of watched him go down, but he
Mm,
fought his way back. He's an impressive guy, not only vocally, but to have such great will, no pun intended. But
right.
he fought his way back, and he's doing great now, and he's back on the road.
Yes, yes. This I know he has been touring. He's popped in through the Midwest, so that is 100% delightful. As a matter of fact, here's a note from the Facebook user that says that Will is in St. Louis for the rest of the week. Ha ha!
Yeah,
There you go.
yeah. I
So
told you that brother lets no moss grow under his feet.
listen, you cannot get mad at that. You cannot get mad at that.
No.
The reason why I brought up Will in that journey is because one thing that I found that is very amazing among men is the desire to be um, accountable to, appreciated by,
Mm.
and affirmed by other men. And so by you being his, brother from another mother, so to speak, his friend since college, I know that a great part of his bounce back had to be due to close friends like you.
Well, it takes a village, and that's something, quote that's been, I think sometimes it's overused, but in this case, it's not. Whenever you're fighting adversity, you're dealing with something that it takes a whole lot of hands to help lift you. And Will had a great support team from his wife Audrey to many others in the music community and friends. So it was just great to see his recovery.
Hmm. That is awesome. That is awesome. Do you have any music that speaks to that spirit between brothers?
Well, I'll share this. Not particularly between brothers, but I've had my own challenges as well as in the midst of my career really taking off some years ago. My wife and I had a child, and he was born with a catastrophic brain illness. And I did write a song that I'm really excited that's going to come out. I wrote it 20 some odd years ago, but it's called Heaven Can't Have You Back. And it
Mm,
was literally, about getting the greatest gift from God, which was my son, but learning that he was so ill and that I might lose him.
mm, mm. As a father, knowing that you might lose your child that God has been so gracious to give to you, what did
Mhm.
that do to you in the inside?
Well, of course, it was the most difficult and remains the most difficult time of my life, and kind of what made it unique was that his illness is such that there has not been a complete cure. And we've been treating him, his first brain surgery was like at 6 days old, and we've been treating him ever since. And those procedures, have a risk that are really catastrophic, from blindness, paralysis, mental retardation. So it's been an incredible battle. You never want to fight for your child's life. We all sort of get used to the fact that, we lose our parents, we lose our siblings and loved ones, but you never want to, feel like you're in a fight for your child's life.
Hmm. But you are, and quite frankly, you have been since your child has been an infant, right?
Yes, no, it's something I always describe it as it's almost like a target being on my back. And it's been a motivating thing. It's what drives me, in my profession. Initially, I left the music business for a couple of years and did not think I would return. I thought, music would, I would leave it permanently. And my wife and I, we were in the hospital for about a year, came home with 24-hour nursing for about 2 years. And, it was very, very difficult circumstance. And, but with each step, and going back to Will for a second, I remember when Will came over as I was doing a lot of music and not leaving the house. He finally came to me one day and said, "Hey, man, you ready to go back on the road?" And I wasn't even sure I could do it, but I was able to get back out there again. So while it's still a battle, I have been able to really push myself musically and get back to some of those things in life that were really taken away.
Do you think that the circumstances with your son has actually made you better?
Oh, without question. I described it to my wife not long ago as when he was born, in all honesty, my brain became on fire because, I looked at this catastrophic circumstance, not only health wise, but financially for us. I mean, my wife and I, we went through millions of dollars in healthcare costs. And how do you survive any of that? So it really allowed me to focus myself in a way that I think was unusual and would not have happened had that not happened in our life.
Wow. So, you know, on the other side of pain, there's always purpose. If you can find the purpose in the pain, you can sometimes not just beat it, but grow beyond it.
Well, I think that's a great point. And in all honesty, that is something that my wife and I were both resolute about. We were pretty certain early on that we would lose him.
Mm,
And what our goal was we said we wanted them to learn as much from him as possible, meaning the doctors, so that those families that would come behind us, they would learn something. And one of the things that happened was, I mean, incredibly so, techniques were developed literally around my son, and he's become somewhat of the gold standard of what's being done. And to that point, I literally, when you look up his disorder, a lot of people around the world, they find him first. It's called a cerebral arterial venous malformation. Heck of
okay.
a word, so
Yeah.
pretty hefty, but they find him. And most people who don't see that there's any hope, they
Yeah.
see our story. And although we had some impressively difficult years, I mean, we nearly lost him hundreds of times, and
Mm,
we fought from infancy through, I think his last procedure was about 16 or 17. And, we fought for all those years. So it is something that I take on as my mission alongside music, to show that if something befalls you, even the most catastrophic thing, if you continue to move forward, you can survive it.
How is your son doing today? What is his story like? And
Well,
his
he's great. He's a musician like Dad. He's been around it his whole life, and I'll share a story with you because it's poignant and it was just the truth. One of the difficulties, even with this catastrophic brain illness, his third procedure, or about 3 months old, they had to give him a trach and a feeding tube. And that for me was far more difficult than the brain illness, which was, far more devastating. But my point was, I had always dreamt that I would teach him how to sing. And, giving him a trach and watching your infant, your newborn that way, that was probably one of my lowest points. But to that point, he sings. He's an incredible young man, very smart. And he works with me. Actually, I'm working on an interview series that he's a direct part of. So it's great that, even after all these years, we're working together side by side, father and son.
That's beautiful. How old is he now?
Oh, he's 25. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, yeah.
Wow. That's beautiful. So not only is he surviving through this, he's thriving through
Oh,
this.
he's absolutely thriving. And he actually graduated from college during the pandemic. And, my wife and I were so disappointed that, we weren't able to go to, a live graduation, because as for any parent, it's monumental. But of course, for us, it's set very differently. But we were just grateful to be able to see it and to watch him continue to move forward.
Excellent. Does he live on his own, or how does that work?
Well, he lives with my wife and I currently, and he
Okay.
always talks about moving out, but we're like, you know what? We're not letting you go. As any parent, you want to hold on and just look over your child. It's, forever. He'll be my child, even though he's a grown man.
Well, yes. And you want to know what? Let me just say, I celebrate multi-generational living. I think it is a good idea for children to set roots down and establish themselves, save up their money prior to leaving. So when they go fly the nest, they're not indebted to the world.
Well, you know what? That's what my wife and I did, but I'll let you in on a little secret. He's not leaving. We're not letting him go. He's not going to want to see this interview, but we're not letting go of him.
Exactly. And for the record, I don't mean lay on the couch and become a derelict. I mean, actually get out there, take the world on, but then have that foundation so the world doesn't take you. I have this friend, and actually he's from Global FM. His name is Aztec. We differ on some ideas, but he has this idea that men specifically should not leave home until they have enough money saved to buy a house.
Okay, I can run with that. I can
Right.
co-sign. I'll tell you this. My wife and I, we met in college, and we were in Virginia, and we literally saved up. She stayed with my parents. She was from Chicago. We met in Virginia. So after college, she lived with my family. We saved our money and decided, I wanted to pursue a career in music. So we were going to move north, but that's exactly what we did.
Absolutely. So you just don't want to leave home indebted to society before you really get a chance to fly and thrive. So speaking of flying and thriving, you have your son. He's graduated from college. You have this fabulous music career going. You've been partnering with your wife, like peas and carrots.
Absolutely. I call my wife and my son the A team, because they're a part of the music. They're a part of the videos that I shoot now. Every song comes with a video. We live in such a visual world that, people consume music by their eyes first and by their ears second. Now, that's very difficult for musicians to deal with, at least older musicians, but it's the world we live in. So my wife and my son, they work alongside me. In fact, my wife calls my studio the dungeon. But
Oh,
I'd like to say I think it's a very nice dungeon.
I think it's a very nice dungeon as well. You're producing all these hits out of that dungeon. So there you go, right?
Well, we're working for a paycheck, like I said, got to go get that bag.
Got to get the bag. You know what? That's your own Hitsville. Absolutely. So I want to talk about the relationship with you and your wife, right?
Okay.
How did the illness affect that relationship?
Well, you know what? My wife and I, and I'm not just saying this because the records show it. We are certainly not the normal couple. I fell in love with my wife in college, and she's my best friend. And I don't think, in fact, I know that you can't get through a catastrophic situation if your foundation is not strong. And I'll share this story with you. When we were in the hospital about a month or two in, there was a psychologist that came to speak with us. And, she'd see us walking through the hallways of the hospital, and she'd always give us that look, oh my. And finally she came in to talk to us, and she said, do you realize, what the divorce rate is amongst, families who deal with catastrophic circumstances? So my wife and I both looked at her and we said, though we were dealing with something so uniquely catastrophic, we were in it together. And so for us, she wound up telling us that she found us to be one of the most unusual couples she had ever met, because usually there may be one entity, which is usually the wife or the spouse, who's more invested or in that way. But my wife and I, we fought through this together every step. Some friends asked, did it make us stronger? Quite honestly, I would say it didn't. We were who we were, and having a strong mate made it possible to survive what I call the unsurvivable.
You're using the word strength, which I think is beautiful. I'm feeling the affections of love, which is awesome, right? But what I need to know the ingredients of what's in the strength. And what are the ingredients
Mm.
that are in the love, you know?
Well, I think you have to start with a strong foundation, in any relationship. I know it sounds a bit cliche, but if there isn't a strong foundation, it all crumbles. Even if you're not dealing with something that's so catastrophic as what we've had to live with, not deal with on a short-term basis, but as they told us to expect lifelong procedures for my son. So it can beat a couple up quickly, but
Mhm.
we've always been great that way. In fact, we were so strong as a couple and as a unit that it was a bit scary, even to those around us. At one point, I'll share this story with you. The hospital, my wife, they did rounds every day, and I had to go back to work, which in itself seemed like a sin that although my son may die, I had to go to work. But, sadly, that's what happens when you're in a catastrophic situation. But anyway, she called me one day at work and she said, you know what, the doctors just made their rounds and they're very concerned. And I was like, okay, here it comes. And she said, about you.
Mm.
And I said, "Me?" And they said they thought that I was maybe asymptomatic because when I got to the hospital, I came in and I said, "Hey, how are you? How's everybody doing?" I waited for an answer, even though sometimes my son was struggling with his life. We were dealing with this. But what I was doing was recognizing that I had to team build. When I
Okay.
was told that my son had this catastrophic illness that he would likely not survive and be significantly impaired, if he
Mhm.
were to survive, I knew that I needed everyone. So what my wife told them was when they told her they were concerned, she said, well, if you get to know my husband, you'll find out that's who he is. So we both had this unmovable position. And I don't say that with any arrogance. In all honesty, I would cry all the way to the hospital. I cry all the way home, if we weren't staying there. But when we got there, my wife and I had a pact that when we were in his room, we would only bring positivity. And there was nothing wrong if emotion needed to come out. But what we agreed on was if the emotion comes out, remove yourself, because we only wanted Kevin to be experiencing, an unfathomable love. So
Yeah.
that was our approach.
That is so exciting. That is so exciting. I love what I'm hearing about the team building. I'm loving that I'm hearing about the agreement among among one another, and you obviously are talking about it. Otherwise, you couldn't have this plan that you're in agreement with in the first place.
Yeah, yeah. It was a plan, and when you're plan building, but of course it's not conscious in that sense. We're living day by day trying to make it through the moment. But
Mhm.
we did recognize that we needed every doctor, every person there. And I'm gonna tell you, we went through some unique situations. I came one day, my wife and I got there late in the evening, and a gentleman came who was cleaning the building and he was sweeping the floors. And he came through and I said, "Oh, have you met my son, Kevin?" Because that's how we were, we'd introduce him. And he said, "Oh, I know Kevin very well. When you all on here and I'm cleaning, I come in and I say hello to Kevin." And that type thing touched me, that we were in a place, and that does not always happen, Erica. I have to emphasize that. We
Mhm.
were in a very unique situation where everybody poured in to Kevin in a way that allowed us to just, try to survive that moment.
Excellent. That is so beautiful. That is so beautiful. I think that's the answer to prayer.
Well, I think so. And by the way, I'm a PK. I'm a preacher's kid. So, that's what I come from. And it's played a great part in my life. My father was an impressively strong man. And I learned to lean upon those things which he taught me early on, that got me and my wife and I both through this, sort of horrific circumstance, quite honestly.
Hmm. I notice that I don't hear any blaming going on back and forth between you and your wife. I don't hear any blaming, I don't hear any shaming, and I don't hear any finger pointing, should have and shouldn't have. I only point that out because so often through difficult times, instead of clinging to the person that's near you, there is frustration that is within about the situation. It just happens to come out on the person that's nearest to you.
Yeah, well, I think that's normal, and it is what's unique again about my wife and I. And if I can go back to the psychologist who again was talking to us about this exact thing, we actually saw, Erica. There was a mother and a daughter, and I remember them very clearly.
Mhm.
And the daughter had a child with a catastrophic illness. When you have a catastrophic circumstance, you see all this catastrophic. So
Yeah.
there was a mother and a daughter in the next room to us in the ICU, and they would get into these arguments near going to blows. And my wife and I, we looked at each other, and we didn't look at them in a negative way. We just looked at it and said we were so fortunate that we were always uniquely that team bond. There was never any issue of blame, never an issue of, you know, who's responsible. It
Mhm.
was, here we are. Can we get through this? Can we keep him with us? Should we keep him with us? The
Mhm.
doctors actually, came to us and asked what type of decision we wanted to make in that regard. And that was very difficult, but we were always one accord. And it's
Yeah.
easy to be a revisionist, to say,
Oh,
this
yeah.
is what it was. But in all honesty, it is, and I'll say this. I always say I've made some questionable decisions in life, but marrying my wife is unequivocally the one decision that I absolutely got right. Because there's some
Wait a minute.
failures along the way, but it's not that one.
Let me get you. Say that again. Let me get you on solo saying.
Uh-oh. Well, I'm quite sure she'll appreciate that. She's sitting right here too. But no, I said I've made some questionable decisions in life, but unequivocally, my wife, the one decision I made to marry her was the best. And all these years later, any relationship, you go through challenges. Obviously, we've lived through nothing but challenges, but our relationship has flourished. She's a beautiful woman, and I'm lucky to have her in my life.
Oh, that's so lovely.
It's the truth. It's just the truth.
I receive it. My heart is smiling just hearing you say that about her. And I would imagine that she would celebrate you just the same.
I think so. And if not, she better send me a lot of money. So
You know what?
money, cash app, they always say what Venmo, Zelle, it all works.
All of that works. I would imagine if she gave you all the money in the world. As a matter of fact, if one of your brothers said, "Ooh, name the price. I just want your wife's love." I was like, I'm ready to write the check now. You say,
Well, you know what, and that's funny too because I met my wife at Virginia Union University in Richmond,
uh-huh,
and even amongst our classmates, we've always been called that couple, you
yeah,
know. And so I think, even through the perfect years when you don't realize they're perfect, but they really are, and life is good prior to, Kevin being born, we were still building such a strong and I think unique foundation of what love, trust, and what really pouring in to make it work. Life and relationships are hard, like I say, if you have, no challenges, but certainly throw in, a challenge which is lasting a lifetime.
mhm.
I think there is something, and if there is any arrogance, I will say, yeah, I'll take that she and I, remain a very strong unit.
That's beautiful. I love it. Did you have any insecurities in your own heart
In regards to,
in regards to anything in this journey? Did you ever say to yourself, "I wish I had of," or it should have been this way. I shouldn't have worked these many hours. I should have said this to the doctor. Any insecurities in the way you were navigating?
that's what's really unusual about our circumstance is that no, there were never any concerns. I mean, as a parent, when you're dealing with a catastrophic circumstance, you want to make sure that every T is crossed, every I is dotted. And here's where we benefited again. My wife happened to be a registered nurse.
Okay.
So you're talking about those insecurities, I think they may have come up had I not had her. But her knowledge, even though she had no knowledge of his illness, my wife had a notepad and, it was very complex because at one point I think he had like 11 different lines coming in and she'd, write everything down. So having her at the helm gave us a piece, or it gave me a piece that I think is a bit unique because I knew that she was looking over their shoulder in a way that was protecting us both.
I love it. I love it. That's beautiful. I love the confidence that you have in your wife.
Well, you know what? She's my everything. It's easy.
Beautiful. That is beautiful. What do you think that she would say about you? What qualities as a man do you think she most appreciates in you?
That I'm a stand-up guy, that I'm willing to put it all on the line and never give up.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. Have you ever wrote her a song?
In college, we talk about this. There were a couple in college, and she reminds me that I haven't, recorded them professionally yet. So,
Why not?
you know what? There's not a good answer for that. I don't know. Probably because I was chasing the bag, in all honesty.
Oh,
You put those things, even though there is always time for love. And as a songwriter, by the way, I love telling stories. And that's one of the great things about being in this profession. And so if you listen to The Bell Tolls for You, which is a really message song, by the way,
mhm.
and even my upcoming release, see that segue? My upcoming release with Michael Lynch, the artist from American Idol, is called End of the Line. Now, you're talking about relationships. I'm quite sure you can guess that End of the Line is not about, a relationship moving forward.
Mhm. Mhm. You know what? It is important to recognize when a relationship is at the end of the line. Learning how to say goodbye and saying goodbye at the right time.
Oh, there's
It,
grace in that. There's
yeah.
grace in that, and most of us would find that very difficult, but there is something beautiful about being able to recognize a relationship that's not working and that for the benefit of all, it's time to move forward.
We have to learn how to grow. I would go back and tell myself
Hmm.
so many things, but one of them would be let go sooner.
Well, you know what? I think that's a great point, not only with relationships, but in life in general. It's something that most of us struggle with, with careers and everything else. And there is grace in knowing when to let that go as well. And I was just having a conversation with a colleague, and it's a bit of a continued conversation, about that when you're struggling through your career, your job, whatever it is, sometimes we're holding on for the wrong reasons.
Okay, okay. I think that this song is just flowing through my head because of your relationship with Will Downey and because I like Will Downey. But he remade I Can't Make You Love Me.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Such a beautiful song, Bonnie Raitt. The original version is just incredible, and Will did a wonderful job, remaking it.
Yeah, you know what? Bonnie Ray's version is good, but Will's is
All
delicious.
right. I'm quite sure he'll appreciate that.
Yes, it is. And but the words and the words in that song is you get to the point you realize I cannot make you love me if you
No,
don't.
yeah. No, it's a beautiful song, and though sad, a beautiful sentiment, a beautifully written song.
hmm The flip side of that is you can't make your heart feel something that it won't. Ooh, wee.
Jewels and gems. That's all it is.
hmm
Yeah,
if we could just get people to realize, don't pretend.
yeah.
Be- I think that's the biggest deal that happens. People actually realize that they don't love you, but the pretending that they do and using you for the moment, that's the hard part.
That's interesting. I can't identify because I've had nothing but the best. So, you
Well,
know,
yes,
there you go. And I'm sticking to my story.
but you've had nothing but the best, but that's not the story for the rest. And you're a songwriter, so you have to dive in.
Absolutely. I agree wholeheartedly. And, I see it all the time. I mean, I've had friends and colleagues, who've had to divorce and, it's really a tough circumstance. And one of the things that I'm most grateful to God is that we have lived this unique lifetime of crisis, yet, our relationship still flourishes. It doesn't mean it's perfect. And what I'll say about what I think perfection is not the sense that everything goes correctly.
hmm
Perfection is that everything doesn't go correctly, but you're willing to do the work nonetheless.
hmm And it's in a marriage, and that is beautiful. But what you and your wife have is needed in friendships and in families. Because
Hmm.
absolutely, you have so much confidence in one another. You appear to be so, I mean, I cannot say it, but what I'm hearing is that you are so generous in thought towards one another. And generous towards your intentions. Matter of fact, I'm noticing there are not any negative assumptions being made about intentions, right? It's
No, no. And look, I've always said that, with dealing with this, I've carried my wife. But there's certainly, without any reservation, there were many times where my wife carried me because that's a part of dealing with something. And I think we did that almost to a case where it was scary that we were able to navigate, such a crisis. And again, for such a long term. and continue to understand how to move forward with that. We always described it ourselves as having on that armor. And I'll be honest with you, one of my difficult times beyond what we were dealing with on a day-to-day basis was we went through a period of about a couple of years where he was uniquely stable and then ran into crisis again. And one of my fears was that, part of our armor was the fact that we wore it all the time. My concern was that, after having, even though, it was always in the back of my mind that we were dealing with this thing that was going to rear its head at some point, when you have a moment to breathe, the biggest concern was, what, am I ready to go back into this war again? But we picked it back up and, we kept running with it.
I love it. Your partnership is so amazing. It sounds like you had the support of your parents, and her family as well. And then you definitely had the support of one another.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm a lucky man. That's all I can say.
You know what? You have all the working pieces and they are functioning correctly. And everyone seems to be rooting for you.
I'll take it.
The sun is on your face and the wind is beneath your wings.
Oh, man. Okay, now you're a poet, so go ahead on. So you sing a verse. Let's go.
Like what? Like what?
Well, I figured if you're going to go with Wind Beneath My Wings, you had that one sort of waiting in the wings.
I was like, do I even know that song? I don't think I know that song, but I will give you this. As if, right? Spirit of the living God, fall afresh on us. Spirit of the living God, fall afresh on us. Melt us, mold us, heal us, fill us. Spirit of the living God, fall afresh on us.
That was beautiful. So you have another career, a burgeoning career in music.
I think you were fully teasing me, but I appreciate you
No, that
letting
was
me
beautiful.
sing to you. That's a prayer. I pray that a lot. I pray that over myself and friends, my family, because God is a friend indeed.
Mm,
And
very
when
true.
and when the Holy Spirit is near and place and welcome in and on a situation, there is a peace that surpasses understanding. And if you can get your partner along with the Holy Spirit, you're unstoppable.
I agree with that. It takes a village.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And for me, it seems like that is the true team, the foundational team that you have. It seems like you have a circle between your wife, you, and the Holy Spirit.
I can't argue that point.
All right, all right. Um, do you have any parting wisdom that you'd like to share?
Wisdom. Uh-oh. Parting wisdom. The one thing that I would say is never give up, never give out. And even though you may feel as though you can't, take another step and go forward, you can. My wife and I know it because, again, we've lived a lifetime of crisis with, our son Kevin, and you have to take one step at a time. And as my mother always says, though not her quote, she says, "How to eat an elephant? One bite at a time." And I think it's more true when you're dealing with something that's, a difficult circumstance. So that's it.
Amen. Amen. I am just so very thankful for you. I don't need to wish you well on your endeavors, but I am just going to cheer you on in your endeavors because you got the team. You got the right ingredients, and God is truly on your side. It has been a blessing and an honor for me to spend time with you today. I think I really do have some more questions. I could dig deeper, but our time has come to a close, and I'm excited to see what you do next.
Well, thanks for having me. I love what you do. I've been following your programming, and you really put the emphasis on love and what makes things work. And I think that's a great space to be in, particularly when you see so much online that can be so negative. What you're doing is pretty amazing.
Oh, wow. Oh, I received that love. I received that love, and
Well deserved.
I'm gonna eat it up. I'm going to eat it up. I love this delicious and sweet things, and that compliment hit me in the heart. Thank you.
Again, so well deserved. It was great talking with you.
All right. Well, I hope to see you again soon. I'll be looking out for your brand new music. You have a lot of good things going on.
I most certainly will keep you in the loop. Again, thanks for having me, Erica.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Okay, family, what we are moving towards now is the next part of our episode. We'll take a short commercial break, but next I have coming up for you Dr. Gregory Williams. He is going to talk to us about his true life story, in which he not only survived, but thrived after going through sexual assault from his very own father. I'll see you shortly. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for continuing to hang out with me this evening on this doubleheader evening of Epic Understanding. We just got done with Tyrone Corbett. He was amazing and shared such intimate details about his relationship with music, his relationship with his son, and his beautiful relationship with his wife. I was blown away by the love that they share in their family. But I must tell you, the next steps that we are going to take this evening touches my heart in a different way. I continue to be impressed by this wonderful, beautiful man, Dr. Gregory Williams. He has a radio show in which he becomes intimately involved with the stories of his audience, um, based off of the hurt that they have and the journey that they've taken regarding male sexual assault and male rape. It's not just because he's a guy who loves to listen and a guy who has a sympathetic heart to these issues. It is because of his own personal journey. What I love most about Greg is that he has not become a victim. He has become a survivor, a person of strength of what has occurred. And it didn't happen overnight. As a matter of fact, it happened late in life. Even through all his greatness, becoming a author and becoming a leader in the medical field, he still had this one area that he needed to conquer as a man. I am so thankful that he did. And without further ado, welcome, Dr. Gregory Williams. How are you doing?
Well, I'm doing fine. Thank you. It's great to be with you here from Houston and you all the way there in St. Louis. Good to see you tonight.
It is great, great, great to be hanging out with you this evening. So, you have this fabulous radio program, don't you?
Well, I think I just happened to trip and fall into a good time slot with the show that was going on before me. It was some state senator in New York.
Uh huh.
And when I started the program about 3 years ago, I think it's been about almost three, um, he had an unbelievable following. And
Uh huh.
apparently those listeners just hung on because it's a live show, goes live show, live show, live show. And they kind of hung around. And I immediately started off with, more than 1 million live listeners every Sunday night. And now we've grown it up to, it varies between 1.5, 1.7, and then it goes into the podcast world. But to be honest with you, I like live radio like we're doing right now. If you make a mistake, you go, oh, sorry, we made a mistake, and just keep on going. But it was just, there is no happenstances in the world that's controlled by God. But it was a great break that I received of having to fill in the time slot of somebody that was pulling out. I stepped in and they kind of followed me. But I have a lot of teachers, medical professionals, social workers, and also thrivers, victims, survivors that listen in and looking for answers, looking for hope.
That's a beautiful thing. And really, with the your live audiences is 1.5 million or so, but after it gets thrown out into the world, it's about 7 million, if I have it right. Is that true?
I don't know. I know it goes into the podcast world. Like
Mm.
our show the other night went into
Yes.
podcast Tuesday, so you can actually look at your iPhone and go, "Hey Siri," I can't say very loud. Come on, "Hey Siri, breaking the silence," a podcast. It immediately goes right to our show, and which is kind of neat. But I have no way of knowing who listens, how many listen, but it's on every platform I think that can be on around the world. I get a lot of people from Australia, New Zealand, some places that I have to look on the map and go, where's that at? But they reach out and talk to me and call, and because I give my personal cell phone number every week. I give it out every day to people, and I talk to them. So I love speaking and listening to people.
Wow, that's amazing. Is there a particular story that you've heard that really touched your heart?
Oh, every week there's some. I've been getting into, and I'm heavily involved in the Houston area in the human trafficking world, because maybe when we get into our story, my story a little bit later, I was human trafficked, but I never even recognized it until I had somebody on the show that we started. Because the neat thing about the show, Coach, that you'll probably understand, is you think maybe I'm the one that's providing the wisdom tonight. Oh, no. When I have somebody on my program, I end up wanting to pay them a fee for therapy. So I get all of these professionals like Dr. Bruce Perry, which is an unbelievable guest, and all these wonderful guests on. They give out so much wisdom, and then I'll just kind of lean in and go, well, what should I do about this? And I start sucking out all of the wisdom I can. And one night I had on the program a young lady that had broken out and got free from being trafficked in downtown Dallas, was taken from Houston the next day from a rock concert. The next day was being prostituted on the streets of Dallas. And in that, we got to talking, and I mentioned something about, on Monday nights, my dad would sell me to his friends, and male friends and couple friends, and men and women would come in my bedroom on Monday nights. And she said, you've never talked about that. That's not in your book. And I said, well, that's one of those things in my first book that I said, there's some closets I haven't opened up yet. And she said, don't you realize you've been trafficked? And I took that, listened to it, and processed it. It took me about a month or two to figure out, wow, that was real. That's the truth. It wasn't just abuse. I was sold by my dad and his friends. And I'm dealing with that still. So I got involved in the United Against Human Trafficking here in Houston, and I'm the chairman of the steering committee now, and really heavily involved in that. And I love helping people that call me off the streets and say, hey, where's there a place to go for me tonight? How can you help me? And I do that frequently. But those kind of guests, everyone has some type of story that they share that just, and Coach, it doesn't matter if they have been abused once or thousands of times like me. Abuse is abuse. It all goes up here in this gray matter, and it starts kicking those shingles loose in our attic, and we have to process. So it's how we handle the abuse and what we take from it and moving forward that, to me, makes all the difference. So I learn from every one of my guests. And the best thing I can do on my program is like what we did the other night, is to be quiet and let them talk. You have a story, share it. And that's what I love to hear.
I had an absolutely wonderful time with your program the other night. Do me a favor, turn down your sound just a bit.
Sure.
We're getting a little bit of feedback.
You got it.
Awesome. But I had a wonderful time on your program the other night. It was great for me to spend time with your audience. They're amazing. So please continue to give them my appreciation. One of the things that I noticed about you is that you are a really good listener. And I definitely think that you listen from the point of view of a person who has been through and learned from your pain, which makes me want to go directly to your book. Your very first book. Why did you write that?
Well, that's a great question. I wrote it to help me heal. It was my journal, to believe it or not. And I was quiet for so many years. And I started writing down in journaling. And I journal since I can remember writing. I had journals and notebooks. I had a whole box of them in my closet, all about the abuse. And they suddenly disappeared one day. I'm sure my dad got them and threw them away. But I've always journaled, and I have journals all around. I mean, literally, there's stacks of journals all around my penthouse here. And I love just writing down. Matter of fact, the new book that's coming out in a few weeks, I teach teenagers and 20-year-olds, younger adults, how to journal, because that was one of my biggest saviors, besides playing the piano and journaling. That was two things that helped me tremendously. But I started journaling, and as I started putting that together, I started understanding that when my life was falling apart in my mid-40s, from relationally, emotionally, physically, I think I was grounded spiritually. God has always been my guiding light, no matter how dark it was in my world. But all the other leaves in my life, physically and relationally and emotionally and all those, it started falling apart. And when my health started falling apart and I had open heart surgery in my mid-40s, my heart just gave out. And I went to Washington University there in St. Louis to a rheumatologist. And the resident came in and listened to my heart. They said, "Oh, can we take your vitals before the doctor comes in?" I said, "Well, sure." And he said, "Oh, you have a heart murmur, huh?" I said, No. And he listened and listened. He said, "You sure you don't have a heart murmur?" "Nope, never had any problems with my heart." And I kind of got perturbed. And I said, "Hey, can you go get the real doctor and let him come in?" And he came in and immediately put the stethoscope on, went to my heart, and he said, "Greg, you have a problem. There's something wrong." I've never had trouble with my heart. And within a week, I was at Columbia, Missouri, having open heart surgery. And there was no medical reason why my heart went bad. I just had a valve that pretty well popped. And because of that, I was recognizing that I was falling apart. And I had to come to grips. And I started noticing in my journaling that it was getting darker and darker. And I was not sleeping. I can't sleep more than an hour and a half to 2 hours a night. I would power nap. Power nap at night, and I power nap in the afternoon, late afternoon. And that's the only sleep I get. Today, even still. I didn't get my afternoon nap today, but so I'm working on about 2 hours of sleep all day. I started recognizing that everything was falling apart in me. And I started to understand that everybody around me was becoming distant. And even though I was successful in every job I had, I always rose to the top. I was recognizing that when I took the mask off and walked into the house, I was in a dark place. And that wasn't good. So I started writing this down, and I finally, while I was speaking in front of a very large group of people, I got, when you have a preacher in you, like I am, I've preached all my life since I've been involved in the ministry since I was 12, but I got called to the ministry like 19, and I started preaching. I got, slinging sweat and screaming and yelling. And I said, "And you know that I was sexually abused as a child?" And I caught myself immediately across the crowd that knew me very well, went, and it was like, what did I just do? And a light came on like maybe a light didn't come on. The scales off my spiritual eyes became clear. And I could literally look out across the crowd and tell who had been sexually abused within that congregation. When I said amen that morning, the altar was filled with people going, Greg, it happened to me. I've never told anybody, from 20-year-olds to 80-year-olds. And it was like, Lord, what just happened? But I felt a release of baggage. And I'm sorry, this is a really long story. I get really windy. And I started feeling the baggage lift up off me. And then I started to share what was going on, just minutely. And I shared with someone I trusted a page from my journal that explained what was happening to me as a child and what I was dealing with. And I just sat back and watched their reaction because it scared me. I didn't know if I'd be accepted. I didn't know if my manhood would be questioned. I didn't know if I'd ever be loved or seen in the same light again. And it went fairly well. There was acceptance there. Not completely understanding the full story, but they didn't reject me. So I started processing this, and I eventually told my mom what had happened. And she immediately sold her house, the house that I got abused in Southern Illinois, and moved to Orlando. And I didn't tell her everything, but I did promise her that I would not share this story with anybody until she died. The day she died in Orlando, I drove back from Orlando to Houston, and I started writing the book. And by the time I got back, and I drove straight through, when I got back from Orlando, to Houston from Orlando, I had the book laid out in my mind, and I started outlining it. And then my kids never knew anything. And I shared with them one chapter at a time as I wrote them. I said, hey guys, I have 3 boys. I need to share with you something. And I started emailing them a chapter. And it was like, what's going on? And if you've read the book, it starts off, boom, here it is. There's no question what's going on. And that's how I told my family. That's how I told the world. I didn't candy coat it. It's rough. And Blake, I remember my middle child, he's 31 now, said, Dad, when's this going to get any better? And I said, well, get through chapter 6 and it starts easing up. And it does. And then it's about the after effects and, what I deal with now. And that's basically how and why I wrote the book. And I really wrote it so people can actually use it and read a chapter and go, wow, I'm not crazy. I felt the same way. I stood in front of a mirror and was trying to pull my hair out. I was driving a car and tried to swerve into a bridge, and I couldn't turn the wheel. And it was like they write me now, and it's done very well in sales. They write me now and said, I felt like that was me, and I'm not nuts. Thank you. And that's the gratification and the positivity that I bring out of all the negativity that happened in my life. And I haven't revealed everything in the new book that's coming out in a few weeks. I reveal a little bit more, and there's still another skeleton or two. I don't know if I ever will reveal because it's way too dark. But
you are on the path of turning pain into power. It is a habit for you. You have just said that you believe that there are things that you won't ever reveal. I think you'll reveal them when the time comes. So if you blossom and develop to the point when it is time to reveal them, I think they will get revealed. I think that you are strong enough and powerful enough and gifted enough for that to happen. And it is okay for things to be revealed one layer at a time.
You know, I never thought that I would reveal that on Monday nights I would have men and women together come into my bedroom and abuse me. I never thought that I would, this happened for about 3 years, 2.5, 3 years, every Monday night. I couldn't do anything on Monday nights.
Mm-hmm.
I had to keep that clear. Monday nights was always usually the first night that my mom was gone out of town. So it was clear for Dad to have all these people in. And how much he charged them to have time with me, but I would literally go from one person and they would drop money in a little Superman cup as a tip. Hey, thanks, kid, when they were done. And I would just be able to wipe myself off, and the next group would come in. And it would last 3-4 hours. It never went into midnights in that area, but it always was up till 10, 11 o'clock at night on Monday nights. I never thought I would tell anybody that.
Mm-hmm.
There's no benefit of me sharing that because you don't think any highly of me because of that. And to me, it's more degrading. Isn't that strange how we put different things on levels? It's more degrading thinking that strangers did it instead of my father. It's strange how your mind processes all this and categorize it and numbs it. It's like Novocaine. You're going through pain, but it's numbed until it starts wearing off. Then you go, oh, wait, this really hurts. But there's a couple other things that, with instruments and things that I may end up revealing, but only if that's going to benefit or help somebody else would I do that.
That's fair. I want to ask this question, but know that we're going to travel back just a little bit after I do this. Was there arousal during the point where, on the Monday night visits? Was there arousal?
No. And I don't remember hardly any and boy, I'm being so transparent. It's scary. There was a time or two when my brother and his girlfriend would tie me down to my bed and they would do things. I was older, I was a teenager, early teens when that happened. And there was a time or two. There was never any more than just a brief reaction to what was going on, but never anything more than that. Majority of the things that I was being put through was things that was being done to me, or they would enjoy watching the other do to me. That was just demented. But no, my arousal was, I would almost do the limp dish rag. That's exactly what I would do with my father. It was, in the middle of the night, every night, he would come in. I'd just lay there and hope it would stop. And I would know what to do and what part he was going to use of me. And there was very little interaction that I would have until later. He trained me what he would want me to do. And if I didn't do it, he would hit me on the back of the head. I never will forget, and it's in the book, and it's not a pretty picture. But when he would pick me up after school, after grade school, so I'm probably in probably 6 years old, maybe. First grade, second grade. He would pick me up at my aunt and uncle's house. They lived 1.5 miles down the road in the country there in Southern Illinois. Pick me up after work, and I would just I'd get off the school bus there. He'd pick me up, and on the way home, Dad would abuse me. It was just something he'd always do. He'd always have his hands on me, and then this one day, he'd grab me by the back of the head, put me down between his legs, and forced me to take him in my mouth. And that's the first time I'd ever had anything in my mouth that was of substance. And I immediately spit it out because I had no clue what was even going down my throat. And I spit it out, and I got hurt bad. And I knew from that point on, never do I do that again. And I know that's not a pretty picture, but those kind of things he would, you knew my dad was a controller in every way, that he was going to control the situation no matter what. And he brainwashed me, manipulate me, groom me, however you want to do it, from the very beginning that I can remember of my childhood, every day.
Thank you for being so transparent with that. I asked about arousal just because I wanted to highlight for the audience, it doesn't matter if you're aroused. You're still not giving permission. It doesn't mean that you are enjoying it. Arousal is a physiological response to something that's happening to you. It's not you enjoying it. And so, although you did not enjoy it, I wanted to take this opportunity to let the audience know that arousal is not permission. And that's for sure. Let's go back to the beginning part of your story. You said that you were preaching and it slipped out that you had been abused as a child, sexually abused as a child. How old were you when that slipped out?
Oh, when I was preaching and that slipped out? Oh, 42. It was 2 or 3 years before my open heart surgery. It was kind of what cracked open the nut. I personally think it was God's way of saying, hey, enough's enough. I kept this quiet for over 30 some years. Never told anybody. So I was in my 40s. I know.
And so your mother never knew prior to that point?
No. I told her after that.
Okay. And you said that your brother and his girlfriend participated in abusing you.
Yeah, my middle brother, that's no longer living, but yeah. So there's no doubt in my mind that he was abused.
Okay.
I really don't believe there is. I mean, his room was a unique room. I can't even fathom my mom and dad allowing this, but there wasn't one inch on his wall that didn't have a Playboy picture centerfold plastered all over it in my brother's room. He was 5 years older than me.
Okay.
Walked in, there's all these Playboy pictures on the wall. And I still can't fathom what parent would think that that's okay and would allow that. And then Tony, I didn't want to mention his name, but he abused me, him and his girlfriend both.
So this was your middle brother, and then how about your older sibling?
Yeah, he's still alive. He lives in Orlando. I guess he still lives in Orlando. Um, I haven't spoken to him since Mom died. We're not um, talking.
Okay.
Um, I I know the only thing I really remember about, because he was 10 years older than me, is that he left the house as soon as he could get out.
Mm-hmm.
And I, I, I believe I can't claim it. I thought one day on the golf course we was going to talk about something. He kind of indicated he wanted to share something, and then it never did transpire. But I I have no clue. But as demented as my father was, I can't believe I'm the only one that he would have done this to. Uh,
Hmm. It
I think
sounds
he
like
did
for
it.
sure that it happened with your middle brother. I don't think your middle brother got that behavior on his own.
It's not normal. I mean, that's just not normal. And but I, I I think when you grow up in a home that looks awesome from the outside in and it's awful on the inside looking out, I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know what really normal was to begin with. But as I look back on it, I'm thinking that's really uh, not not the most functional family around when that happens.
Mm. I'm so sorry this happened to you. I am curious though, why was your mother traveling every Monday?
Well, she and that's kind of when it elevated from at night uh, to around 11 and 12 years old, somewhere in that area. Mom got a promotion with a company, a gas company, a propane gas company in Southern Illinois, and she became like a 4 or 5 state supervisor. She would go and train all the people, all the offices.
Mm-hmm.
And she would leave Sunday nights or early Monday morning every week and come back late Friday night.
Mm.
And when that happened, I literally, it went from this abuse to that level of abuse uh, so quickly that I never slept alone again. I had to sleep in the same bed with my dad on nights that mom wasn't there. Um, I never took a shower by myself. He never
Mm.
took a shower by himself. Whether I just got out of the shower and he'd been out mowing the lawn and he went in the shower, I had to get in the shower with him.
Mm.
I would, as a young, 12, 13-year-old boy, I would be fixing hamburger helper at the stove. He would come in from work. I would be already home from school, and he would come in and reach around me, start kissing me, following me while it was like I was his, uh,
His wife.
yes. And it just ramped up. And that's when also the friends got involved. I was gang raped 2 or 3 times during the summer that I talk about explicitly in the book. Um, and from that summer on, that's about what time when mom got the promotion. And then these people that raped me in a group were some of those Monday night visitors, which were prominent people in the neighborhood. I mean, in the community.
Community.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. What was your parents? What was their relationship like?
Well, from the outside looking in, wonderful. They were, Lions Club, and mom was the sorority person, and they had card clubs, and all the women would come over and they would play bridge, and they'd have little tables in each part of the house, and I'd sit at the piano and sing "How Great Thou Art" for them, and it was all a big show, very prominent in the community. Um, but when everything was said and done, when the doors closed and they were all gone, there was arguing. My dad drank a lot on the alcoholic side. Uh, he would hit mom frequently. There was always screaming. And you never knew how to walk through the house, because you walk through the house at the wrong time on the wrong day, you're going to get popped, because he would go from here to here just in a New York minute. You just never knew where he was going to be with his anger. But I think she took the job of the promotion to save herself, just to tolerate it. Now, when I went to college, I pulled out of the driveway, and as I was pulling out of the driveway, Dad knocked on the window, and I rolled down the window, and he said, "Hey, son, just want to let you know, we're getting a divorce, your mom and I. We wanted to wait until you left the house." And so I had to deal with that driving down to Branson. It wasn't Branson, it was Bolivar, Missouri, Southwest Baptist. And as I drove down there, that was the first time I knew they had problems and issues, but they got a divorce after I left college.
Did you ever go back and connect with your dad after college?
Yeah. When the abuse stopped, and that's one of those stories that is so hard to put in terms and writing. I remember almost 17 years old. I believe it was June, prior to my July birthday, which I would have turned 17. I was out on a date with my girlfriend. Had to be home by midnight. That was the one rule you never broke in our home. Had to be home by midnight. Friday and Saturday night. So I had that plan down in my mind. You drop the girl off, and you have 7 minutes to get from out into the country, and you would floor it to get there so you wasn't late. And so you imagine almost a 17-year-old boy just kissing his girlfriend good night. We'd been to the drive-in. And you always neck at drive-ins. You always kiss and love on each other during drive-in. And kissing her goodnight, driving home. And for some reason that night, I knew, because it was going to happen, I was going to be kissing my dad good evening within minutes. And there was a rage that started building up in me that I didn't typically have. I'm a pretty calm person. It takes a lot to get me excited. I faked it until I made it, type thing. I really did it. I still deal with that like that. And it started raging in me, and I just wasn't in. It's like, oh no, I got it. Here we go. And I walked in the house, and it was one of those nights that Dad literally was standing at the entryway, and I'd say, "Hey, hello, you ready, son?" I mean, I didn't even hardly get in the door. And I said, well, can I go change my clothes? And I went to my room, started taking off my shirt, and he was on me. It was the night of kind of hard passion is what he would play. And he started ripping the stuff off, threw me on the bed, and would just popped on top of me and just starting all this stuff and trying to get everything off. And it was like, and I started just to do the limp thing of going, okay. And for some reason, it just raged up in me. And I pushed him away and said, stop. Never had I said that before.
Okay.
And he kind of looked at me and gave me that little grin. Like, okay, this may be fun. And he went back at me again. And it just bottled up, and I pushed him to where he almost fell back. Dad was a small guy. I think he was like 5'7", 5'8". And at that point, I was 6 foot, 210 pounds. I pushed him off me, and I said, I swear to God, if you ever touched me again, I will tell everybody everything you've ever done to me. And it's like, whoa. He stepped back. And you could see the wheels turning. And he looked at me. And he said, okay. Okay. Went to the bedroom door, opened my bedroom door, turned around, and he said, good night, Greg. and slammed the door. Never touched me again. But he called me Greg.
Mm-hmm.
He never called me son again. And this is what gets up in my brain and messes me up. And it probably will if there's people listening tonight with their own life. I lost my dad that night.
Mm-hmm.
It hurt. Even though he hurt me and abused me all of my life,
Mm-hmm.
Inside I wanted to scream. Wait, come back. I'll be better than you ever can imagine. I'll do whatever you want. And I wanted to say it. I wanted his love again. And I never got or felt love from him again. We never had a normal conversation after that. It was always about the weather. Hey, how you doing? And he would go on. It was never a father-son. And that's hard to process.
Mm-hmm.
He showed up in my church as I was preaching, him and his new wife, sat there on the back pew every Sunday watching me. I had 3 boys.
Mm-hmm.
We would go visit him at Thanksgiving and Christmas. I never let my boys be alone with him. They never knew why.
Mm-hmm.
But it was very strained from that point on.
Mm-hmm.
And then the only time I ever talked to him about it was on his deathbed. Then I told him everything that I was thinking. He was in a coma. But so that's how the relationship went from there to the day he died.
I see how much that hurts you and how you still long for his love as a father.
And I don't understand it. And, I was a foster parent, and I had boys that would come into the home. And matter of fact, we even lived in a boys' town type of home in Southern Illinois with, I think, 6 or 8 teenage boys that were in foster care or waiting to be transferred into foster care. My boys grew up with that in that environment because I wanted to reach out and help kids. And I couldn't fathom, why do you want to go back to your parents when on a weekend and visit when you would come back with cigarette burns all over you or a black eye? And they would say, but that's my dad. And I never could understand it. But in the back of my mind, it's exactly what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you even want to have a relationship? Because that's my dad. Who are you without your dad? And that was tough. It's still tough.
I see it.
The next week or two is not one of my favorite days of the year, to believe it or not. That's a terrible day for me.
I can understand that. Does it make you struggle with your identity as a dad?
Yeah. I was such a bad dad. Matter of fact, I had all 3 boys on the radio program one Father's Day area, and my middle son, right before the show, said, "Dad, I don't think I can do this." I said, "Blake, you don't have to. I understand." He said, "I'm going to listen, but I don't want to participate." It's okay. So I had the oldest and the youngest on, and they told me, "Now we understand why you were the way you were."
Mm-hmm.
And they appreciated that. I never will forget, I gave a manuscript to my oldest son, and the manuscript looked like this.
Okay.
And I handed it to him, and he was spending the night with me, him and his wife and son. And he read it from the beginning to end, and he wrote me a letter that was absolutely the most beautiful letter about how proud he was that I was his dad, and he understood and thanked me for protecting him when he didn't know he needed protected. He understood all of my faults better And we have a better relationship now than what we ever have since the book came out 3 years ago. I remember this hasn't been, this is still fresh news for me. I'm still in the process.
So that makes a lot of sense. When you say you were such a bad dad, what do
Yep.
you mean by that? Why do you say you were such a bad dad?
I didn't make myself available. Now I played ball in the yard with him. I coached Little League. We taught him how to ride bikes and all of that stuff like a normal dad. But I was disengaged. I would sit in my chair, and I'm being serious, and other people may not be able to understand this either. I'd sit in my chair and watch Andy Griffith. And if I'm lying, I'm dying. I watched 4 episodes tonight. When I get off with this, I'll sit and watch a couple of more episodes. That's somehow my peace world. I get calm when I watch what a dad should be like and a father-son relationship. It brings me peace. So I did that instead of being with my kids. When I should have invested more in them. But I was a workaholic. I worked 60, 70 hours a week. I bought them all the Nintendo games they wanted. They each had their own system in their bedrooms, and they had all the Happy Meal toys and all of that stuff. But I don't think any of them, even on this show, when I did an interview with them, they said, the things we remember is when you would hit us ground balls and pop flies out in the backyard. When the shower curtain would go bad, you would always put it in the middle of the living room and spray it down with shaving cream and let us wrestle. And Dad, that's the things that we remember. And it's like, wow, I don't even remember that. I just remember giving you stuff. I needed to spend more time with them. I wish I had. If I had to do it over again, I would have.
It sounds like to me you gave them the best that you had available.
Yeah, it was damaged goods, but you deal with it the best way you know how to survive. I was in survival mode. And believe you me, that affected and it still affects every relationship, Coach, that I am in, from my childhood to today, is affected by what happened to me.
I don't see how it couldn't. It absolutely has to. Let's see. When you revealed this, you were in your 40s. How old were your boys at that point?
20s, early 20s.
Early 20s. And how were things with you and your wife at that point?
I was on, that was my first wife and I divorced, the mother of my 3 boys. And I was with my second wife at that point, and she and I have divorced too. I'm single. And let me be honest. It's because I'm broken in ways of trust is huge, and there's just issues with me that I know I'm probably terrible to live with. I don't think I'm an angry person or anything like that. I'm not hateful, but I can be distant at times, or I talk too much. And we're going to talk about this at the masculinity thing, because it affects you 2 different ways. In my manhood, anyway, it affected me of being overly clingy. I would follow the person around the house, or at times to be absolutely distant. I wouldn't let you behind my mask because I'm comfortable back here, and why reveal it if it doesn't mean anything to you anyway? And that affects relationships. And I listened to your first guest. Oh, to have that type of would have been tremendous, but I was faulty.
It sounds to me that you were able to navigate through the physical abuse of everything, but the emotional wounds, the scars and wounds that you have on your inner man, you are still trying to navigate through.
Absolutely. And me helping other people is the healing lotion that I use to apply to my hurts. So when I spend extra time talking to somebody on the phone, if they call tonight or need my help, I'll give you the shirt off my back if you need it. Brings healing to me. But yeah, the physical, I go, and if I'm lying, I'm dying again. When I go to the dentist, I don't need a shot to deaden the pain. Don't deaden it, the nerve. Just go in there, yank her out. Just go ahead and fill it. I don't need it. I can block that completely out.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I guess what I was saying, physical, I mean, sexually, you haven't had a problem. The night that you told your father no for the first time, you were having a romantic encounter with a woman. So
yeah, I never doubted my sexuality. I never, I don't think I was ever outside of the norm of what a normal teenage boy or young man or young married person would be, outside of the norm of that. There were times that something would happen, or just the right touch or some reaction or look on the face would trigger. And I may do it was like a kick in the gut, but I never shared that because nobody knew until it was too late.
So that's what I'm saying. It doesn't seem like your pain manifests itself sexually in any way. It really just created wounds emotionally. And it feels like it's because that's the wound that wasn't healed with your father.
Yeah, I still look in the mirror every morning and I hate what I see. Even though I know I'm a masterpiece from the Heavenly Father, and He's made me more than a conqueror. And I know all the verses and all of that, but it's still, I cannot stand looking at myself. And when I shave, I'll electric shave away from the mirror. I never get up in there because I just don't like. I don't think I don't like that. So there's a lot of emotional things that I've tried to get therapy through some of that, and I've come a long way in that, but not even close to being. So I'm very insecure, even though if you met me at Baylor College of Medicine, you would think I'm the most secure, positive man on the face of this earth, and confident. That's the fake it till you make it. That's the mask. That's the man that I needed to be able to be popular and successful in a man's world. And it works. And it scared me when the book came out. I was the doctors, and I did my first speech in front of the doctors that I work with. How are they going to take me? They're not going to like me after this. And I'll be doggone if after I got done, I had, I believe, 8 doctors come to my office after the grand rounds and tell me their personal story of being abused, and they had never told anybody either. Wow. And so it was, they accepted me and loved me through it. So it's a great
That's
group.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it really is.
That's beautiful. You said when you get up in the morning, you hate what you see. What part of yourself are you, hating? What part of yourself are you dissatisfied with?
It's almost like, because I try to process it, I try to self-audit myself, and I read all these. I'm a reader like crazy. And I've had a lot of guests on my shows that I've had counseling from. It's kind of like, what is it, bulimics that will eat and never think they're skinny enough or whatever, and they're skin and bone, and they still see something that's fat. It's that type of thing that even though I see flaws, I see ugliness, I see what my dad told me I was, which was worthless. I'm trash. And even though he really got enjoyment out of that trash, that's what I just don't. I'm disgusted. When I see a picture of myself, it's like terrible.
So I when you sent me your cover to your new book, and there are these pictures of you. When I saw the cover of your new book, I was just like, wow, hiding in the darkness. Whose eye is that? Whose eye is that?
Yeah, that's not me. That's just a picture that I bought the rights to. But that looked like what I was envisioning me being. I was behind that mask, hiding. And I had done a lot of research on that, and I really never thought I would come back. And I'm hopefully going to finish that book. I got this book for teenagers coming out in a couple of weeks, and I'm currently working on Hiding in the Darkness now. Writing is so hard, especially when it's emotional. It's literally like I never had a baby, but it feels like I'm having a baby because the ripping of the muscles and the deliverance of this, and hopefully it'll be a beautiful thing at the end. But boy, it sure hurts getting there.
Well, I can imagine that. Let's travel to the left side of this image, and there are 3 pictures of you. Okay.
Yeah.
I think the big one is what everybody knows you as. That's Mr. Baylor College of Medicine right there. That's who that is right in front. And it seems to me that perhaps the gentleman that's just behind him is who or your response to yourself in the morning. There's a great sadness there.
That was taken, I believe, right after Grand Rounds that day as my first speech when the book came out by somebody at the Texas Medical Center that runs the Texas Medical Center magazine. And they interviewed me that day, and they took that picture in the hallway, and they tried to get the lighting of like I was walking down a dark hallway and stopped to reflect. But yeah, that's where that came from. I guess that's the only time I've ever seen that picture was in a story by them. And
you can see the pain in your eyes.
Well, if you go back to that, or I can do it here, I do the little kindergarten picture of that's me on the cover of Shattered by the Darkness. I do a whole workshop on my eyes. And as I go through first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, in my eyes, you see so much pain, even though there's a smile there, and there's a kid that had, Justin Bieber hair, and I was a cute little kid, but there's a lot of pain in those eyes right there. A lot of pain for kindergarten.
I agree. I'm glad you're bringing that up. Hold it up again. Right, because the same look that's on your face there, if you look closely, it's the same look that's in the eyes of the gentleman that's standing by. I'm going to call your representative. Mr. Baylor College of Medicine.
Yeah. In the mask, I was so good at that. And until I just took that mask off not too long ago when the book came out. I think the book came out July 2019. 2018, I believe, and then the publisher picked it up the following February and republished it for me. And that's when the mask had to come off. I was telling the whole world, and boy, that was hard. It's still difficult some days because I don't know how people are going to accept me. Although I tell everybody, I'll be in a restaurant, and I never go to a restaurant alone without buying a meal for a person or a couple on the other side of the restaurant. And I always go by, and I have my business card that has a picture of the books, my radio show, who I am, and how to contact me if you need help. I always go by and say, I just wanted to bless you today. If you ever need anything, this is me, and this is what I stand for. And 9 out of 10 times they'll say, hey, oh, can you have a seat? And they'll tell me their story. It never, well, it sometimes fails, but almost, probably 80% of the time, they will share with me, oh, I have a niece, or I've gone through this. And they'll share me this intimate details of their life. And it's like, wow. And I think that's my calling. That's my purpose now, is to help people get rid of the baggage.
You're doing a beautiful job, an absolute beautiful job of it. And I thank you for being so transparent and so generous with your story. I'm going to ask you, if you would, turn to the opening of your book and just kind of share with us a few bits of it, how it opens, because it opens powerful right away.
You looking for the preface, or are you looking for the chapter?
The chapter. Oh, I'll just say this: what you think is best. What you think is best.
Well, the first line in the book, I've always thought, and the first line in this new book that's coming out in a couple of weeks is what the book's all about. The first line in chapter 1, that's called Christmas 1967, it goes, there wasn't a day in my childhood that I can remember that I wasn't abused. And then I go into living in the country about 5 miles. A couple of small southern Illinois towns seem to be perfectly placed to be raised. A nice, clean, upper middle class home with 2 cars in the garage looked from the outside as a storybook settling for a family. The yard was kept meticulously mowed. The backyard was fenced in and even surrounded to a much envied swimming pool that many in the late 60s weren't even fortunate enough to have. The image of a family that was respected, well known, and well liked in the community. I'm still shocked that a child can experience over 12 years of daily abuse, and it could be so well hidden within the walls of a very normal and average looking home that no one ever recognized it. And then it goes on into the first Christmas that I remember being abused and how Dad did that to me.
Can you talk a little bit about that first Christmas?
Yeah. And when I started writing, because I question this, and Coach, tell me if you don't do it too. When people come on your program and they'll say something like, well, I was, this happened to me when I was 2. I remember. You're, whoa, how do you remember what happened to you at 2? I always like, okay, I'll listen to the story, but it wasn't like that for me. So I sit down with my journal and I was starting to write this. I thought, okay, what's the earliest memory that I have? And I remembered Christmas, the Christmas catalog. Back in those days, you actually got them in the mail. You remember those?
Yeah.
The little wish books. And it had Dennis the Menace on the cover. I love that catalog because I love Dennis the Menace. It was just like, that's my favorite cartoon character. My comic books were Dennis the Menace. And I carried that little Christmas catalog around like it was, my little Bible type thing. And I was in my bedroom one day with that catalog, going through and making my list for Santa Claus. And my dad walked in and he said, "Hey, son, what you doing?" I said, "Oh, I'm fixing out Santa Claus list." And he said, "Oh, let me see." So he took the catalog and he acted like he was interested, and then picked me up on my shoulders and my arms, set me in front of him, and grabbed my pajama bottoms and pulled them to my ankles and started in. That was the first memory of me being abused. And he kept saying, "Santa Claus don't come to homes, that the little boys don't make their fathers feel good and do what daddies ask them to do." He was already grooming me. And I remember those words. And I remember how I felt. I remember the mess afterwards. And he threw my pajama bottoms at me. It was my favorite red flannel plaid pajamas. And I had to clean up the mess. And I had to tell Mom that I had an accident from the bathroom on my pajama bottoms because she washed them. But so I remember that event, and every day up to Christmas, I remember that abuse happening, vividly. So as I was doing my journal, I think, okay, what year was that? So I typed in, and you can do it right now on the internet, Christmas catalog, Dennis the Menace on cover. And it came up Christmas 1967, and there Dennis the Menace is. And I kept searching for more. That was the only one. And I looked at the date, and it said 1967. And I thought, oh my God, I was 4. I was 4. That's how I got the date. And literally, it was a couple of weeks before Christmas, earlier in the month of December. And, we were worried about what we were going to get from Santa Claus. But that's how I got the date. It wasn't like I could sit down and go, "Oh, I remember December 1967. I was, 4.5 years old." And it wasn't that way. I literally had to do research from the awesomeness of the internet. And when I kept searching, and when I saw it, the picture under the images, and I use it in my presentations now, it's like, wow, that's the catalog.
Right. It.
Everything started pouring out. When I saw visions of it in actuality, when I saw a picture of the cover of the little children's Bible that I talk about, so when you go back and try to uncover the abuse, if you ever want to do that, I really challenge you all to get rid of the baggage in your trunk. Those kind of pictures will spark and it just started pouring out. I never had to get hypnotized or, went through meditation to learn how to where it was. It just started coming after that. It just started flowing, and I started putting it on the calendar in my journal, and then time framed it, and then Little League, and then the summer that I was raped, and all of those, and it just played out, laid out for the book.
That is so powerful. I listened to what you said. I want to know, how did you know to lie to your mom?
How did I know what?
To lie to your mom, because you're 4.5 years old. You instinctively knew to lie to your mom about the mess. And I noticed that you keep referring to it as the mess. But how did you know to lie?
Well, Dad told me that if I ever told, I would be in major trouble. I mean, I remember that from day one. He also told me that if I didn't do it, not only would I not get Christmas presents, but neither would my brothers. And they wouldn't be too happy with me either. So he started that manipulation. And my mom was one of those people that she literally would iron your underwear, your socks. My mom stood at the iron, and I iron everything now. I learned all that from my mom. And I knew that you didn't make a mess on your clothes without explaining it to Mom, or I was going to get in trouble from her. But he told me to do that.
I see. So he told you to lie.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. And so if you were 4.5, that means your brother was almost 10, or at least, or about 10.
Right, right.
Mm-hmm. And so he wasn't as youthful as you were.
Yeah, Tony shared a room with me, so he was in a twin bed on the other side of the room. So when I would be abused in the middle of the night, every night, from that moment on, from that December '67, Dad would come in after Johnny Carson's show, and Mom would go to bed, smoke a cigarette. I could smell the smoke coming down the hall. You can see the amber burn light coming down the hall because it's a dark hall, and I still have, you know, the darkness is my dad in the book. That's what this is all about. And when I saw that dark figure in my bedroom door every night, I knew what was going to happen. And he'd always go to my brother's bed to make sure he was asleep, and then he'd come over to my side and pull down the covers and start in. And every now and then, as I would lay there, I would look over, and a few times I remember looking straight into my brother's eyes, and it was like deer in the headlights eyes, and then he'd roll over and like he didn't want to. And it, to me, it was the understanding, hey, I know what you're going through, but there's nothing I can do to help you. But yeah.
Was your older brother still in the home at that point?
Yeah. Or we wouldn't have been in the same room. Tony and I wouldn't have been in the same room, because when my older brother left, we each had our own rooms then. So probably a couple of years later when he left.
What's the time span between your oldest brother and you?
10.
What's the difference?
Yeah. My middle brother's 5 years older. My oldest brother's 10 years older. So there's 5 years apart from each of us. So when he left home, I was around 11, 12 years old.
I am curious about the experience between your older brother and your dad. And I'm also curious about your mother's relationship and your dad. Where was there, sexual deviance in their relationship, and was he abusive to her in any way? And then your mother had quite the I don't know, quite the significant job for those days as a woman.
Yeah. And rose to the top. She was a big wig in that company. I mean, they flew her out to California all the time to get trained, and very, very popular and successful. And she taught me how to work. My mom was the one that, this is how to be successful. This is how to do it. And she knew how to. Was you getting ready to say something?
Well, I was, that's a very interesting dynamic for you to have in your household, with a mother who's that strong in that day in age. I mean, women couldn't even have their own credit cards until the 70s.
Yeah, it is interesting because my dad never graduated grade school. He couldn't read. And Mom was just the opposite. She was very successful in business. Dad was, he worked hard. He was a painter and a welder. And, he was really, he came home all sweaty, and he put in a hard living. But yeah, after I told Mom, I never told Mom all of it. I just told her that it happened. And she was totally flabbergasted, although I don't know how she couldn't have known. But she did tell me that she knew that my dad was demented in that area. She knew that he had some weird ways in that area. I don't know what that meant. We never talked about it. You don't talk about that with your mom and what her husband did, but but she did share with me that several times. And there's no doubt in my mind that Dad probably was abused too. I don't see how you can get that demented. Unbelievable appetite for, I mean, it would be, some days it would be 1, 2, 3, 4 times. It's like, good night. You know, it just, he couldn't get enough.
So sorry this happened to you. I thank you for sharing. You've been very generous. Was your mother a college grad or no?
No, she worked there from, I think, early years. We grew up in what we call the oil fields of Southern Illinois. So she worked with Texaco Oil Company, which is very major there. Matter of fact, when you walked out into the country at our backyard, it was like daytime almost because of all the eternal flames that were burning. And I don't know if you've ever seen that, but in oil fields, they burn off all that pressurized fumes off to the side of the oil derrick, the oil pump that's going up and down. So we had, matter of fact, still getting royalties from oil wells on the property. And so she learned that system in Texaco, and then got into the propane gas part of it, natural gas, and just rose up from being the office manager to managing Illinois, then Iowa, Idaho, Missouri, Illinois, and I think 4 or 5 states. And then she started traveling.
So she was just a very effective person.
Yeah, she was very, very business. Yeah.
Very interesting. And what did your dad do for a living?
He was a welder, painter. He painted oil field semis, the big Mack trucks, and they would break down the trailers to be able to transport oil equipment, and he would weld those. And then he also sprayed, painted the actual cabs of the tractor trailers.
Okay. So it really wasn't unusual that they met. How did they meet?
I don't know that story.
Okay.
Don't know that story.
Because it seems like they are so incredibly different.
Yeah, I never saw them really get along well, ever. It was always tension. I never saw that relationship being a loving relationship, although they were both successful in their world, and we had nice things. I mean, you know, we would on weekends, we would go to St. Louis, and back in those days, and shop at famous bar in Sticks Bar and Fuller, and walk right down through the streets of downtown St. Louis. And that's where I got all my clothes as a child. Right down to, that's the kind of shopping that they did all the time.
Are you still a shopper?
You know, that's funny. That's my vice.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I buy clothes. That's crazy. Clothes and suits. Yeah. That's where I find peace too, because I go and buy shirts that I don't even need, but I'll buy them. I have closets full of shirts that still has tags on them.
Wow.
It's crazy.
Something about having it new. Something about having it brand new.
Yeah, I like that.
We are going to hang out together coming up soon in about 2 weeks. Me, you, and all of these great guys, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be a blast. As a matter of fact, I think it's a great time for me to play this little commercial here. Here we go. Can't help but appreciate that.
I think it's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to listening to everybody, and it looks like we all have different topics that we're going to be sharing about. And
You do. You do. Um, One of the gentlemen, they're going to talk about um, going deep in your relationships. And I think that's where your quest is right now. You want to start to go deep, not just with people that you don't know well, but it sounds like you want to get deeper with your boys. You know, it sounds like you want to create closeness and intimacy because that's the part you missed out on.
Mhm. Absolutely. I mean, I don't think there's anybody in their right mind that if they're a father or a mother that wouldn't want to be closer to their children.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and my boys are really, really special and unique, and I would put them up against anybody. They're just the best in the world, and love them dearly. And then have grandchildren now, it's just unbelievable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know what? That's that competitive streak in you. I'll put them up against anybody. Look,
Yeah.
you can't help it. You want. I think maybe that's a piece of your mom you got. That's why she was very driven, and you're very driven in that way. You've been incredibly transparent with us here today. Obviously, we know you have the credentials to talk about how male rape is real. What I like about you is that in all of this, you deliver a message of hope. You deliver a message of hope.
Yeah, there's always hope. And even in the middle of it, I felt the hope.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a whole different story that would take another half hour. But uh, I see now that I look back on it, God's hand,
Mm-hmm.
literally, with learning how to play the piano without lessons for my
Mm-hmm.
Aunt Dorothy, and how that's comforted me to being taken to church, not by my mom and dad, but by my grandma and
Mm-hmm.
Aunt Dorothy and Uncle Ray, and getting involved there, and how that just all laid out. And it just is horrifying to me that church now is starting to get unmasked of being part of the abuse to so many kids today. And that tears my heart out, because church was my place of safety. I always felt safe at church, and every child should. And where we dropped the ball on that, I don't know. But it's
Well,
sad.
every child should feel safe in their home, but you were never so safe in your home. I think we have to get accustomed to holding our leaders accountable
Yeah.
in every area, whether it's as a parent, at the pulpit, or even in corporate America. All leaders have to be accountable.
Yeah.
If we don't, we leave the people like you and me, we leave them vulnerable to happenstance. You know, we leave it to chance um, to whether or not they will be safe. Hmm.
And, and I like what you said. I mean, I always try to leave every program, every stage that I talk on, every book chapter that I end on about hope. It has to be about hope. Don't
Hmm.
give up. As long as you got breath, there's hope. And God doesn't waste a hurt. So if you take that hurt, grab it, use it, repackage it, and make it positive to help somebody else, you put the devil right into hell where he belongs.
100%. I thank you for those wise words. I'm very thankful to have had you here tonight. You really just gave a powerful testimony, and you left us with um, powerful, positive words. Did you have a final statement that you wanted to give to our audience? Any particular wisdom you wanted to share?
Well, I think the hope is always the way I like to end everything. If there's somebody that needs somebody, you don't have to do this thing alone. The journey is not meant to be alone. And if you need somebody to go on that journey with you, call me, contact me. And I love the way this works out, Coach, because I think we kind of met. We're going to walk down the journey together.
Yes, we are.
A mile or two, who knows? But eventually we will part into our own ways. But boy, isn't that journey going to be awesome to be able to share some things together? And we're going to learn from each other. That's what life's all about. I was always looking for the right person instead of trying to make myself more right. And I think that's what I need to understand. There's people out there that can join the journey with us. But the hope is in me, and through Christ, I can become what he wants me to be and help people a block down the road, a mile down the road, or for years down the road. And let's take hands and see how far it goes and learn from each other. And you don't have to do it alone. And contact me if you ever need somebody to talk to. I'd love to talk to you.
That is beautiful. I love what you just said about how we're going to walk down the road together. We will part, but it is important that we become the person that we need ourselves to be and stop finding that in someone else.
Yeah, we sure try to put it in other people. You'll make me who I need to be. No, I got to be who I'm going to be alone. And I'll have other people help me get there. But my life cannot be focused on only one person besides Jesus Christ.
So absolutely powerful. Tell the folks again where they can find you each week on the radio.
Yeah. You can get on there at BBS, boyboyscottradio.com, live 8 p.m. Central Time. It goes for an hour. Or you can get on the Facebook page that we have. You can get on iHeart Radio, Spotify, YouTube, look it up, and you can get there in so many different ways. But BBS Radio, it runs live every week on there. So,
and what's the name of your program?
Breaking the Silence with Dr. Gregory Williams.
All right.
And the Facebook page is Shattered by the Darkness Facebook page, and it runs live on there. My son runs that. And come on and listen. And if you have a story and you want to share, contact me. And I'd love to have you as a possible guest too.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, thank you, everyone, for joining me this evening. It has been powerful and amazing. You can find Dr. Gregory Williams on iHeart Radio or any of your other local listings. Just pop it into Google and he shall come up. It's been amazing spending time with you guys. You guys have been hanging out with me the whole night, and I appreciate it. I can't wait to see you at the Global Positive Masculinity Summit. We are going to really dive deep into mental health, and I am just full of gratitude for the relationship that we are building together. And I'm just going to go ahead and say bye-bye for now. Thank you for watching. You're winning. You're winning.